Right now, the most advanced supercomputers on Earth, backed by trillions of dollars in Silicon Valley funding, are fundamentally struggling with a massive technological problem that a brilliant Hindu sage completely solved over 2,500 years ago using nothing but the sheer processing power of the human mind. I was looking at the back-end mechanics of modern language models recently, trying to understand why artificial intelligence still makes such bizarre, illogical mistakes when interpreting human commands. It turns out, the greatest bottleneck in artificial intelligence today is not a lack of microchips, processing speed, or electricity. The ultimate barrier preventing machines from achieving true, flawless understanding is the actual language we use to program them. Modern languages, like English, are chaotic, deeply flawed, and filled with unpredictable ambiguity. But what if I told you that the perfect, mathematically flawless programming language already exists, and it was not created in a modern tech laboratory? What if the absolute key to unlocking the future of artificial intelligence is hidden inside the sacred, ancient grammar of Sanatana Dharma? Today, we are stepping entirely outside the realm of mythology and diving straight into hard computer science, linguistics, and cognitive physics. We are going to explore a mind-bending discovery made by researchers associated with NASA, proving that the ancient Sanskrit language is structurally identical to the most advanced algorithms used in artificial intelligence today. To truly grasp the magnitude of this ancient scientific achievement, we first have to understand the exact nightmare that modern software engineers face when building natural language processing systems, or NLP. When you speak to a machine, the computer does not understand the soul of your words. It only understands rigid, mathematical logic. It converts your sentence into a semantic net, which is essentially a web of data points trying to figure out who is doing the action, what the action is, and how it is being done. The problem is that English is incredibly sloppy. Take a simple sentence like, "I saw the man with the telescope." To a human, context usually tells us what this means. But to an artificial intelligence, this sentence is a mathematical disaster. Does it mean you used a telescope to see the man? Or does it mean you saw a man who was physically holding a telescope? Because English relies almost entirely on the rigid order of words to convey meaning, any slight variation creates massive mathematical confusion. The machine has to guess the context, and when machines guess, they make catastrophic errors. Now multiply that ambiguity by millions of data points, and you see why building a flawless AI using English is like trying to build a perfectly precise quantum computer using a rusty hammer. This is exactly where the breathtaking brilliance of ancient India enters the picture. Around the 5th century BCE, a brilliant, uncompromising linguistic architect named Maharishi Panini authored a text that modern computer scientists now consider one of the greatest intellectual achievements in human history. It is called the Ashtadhyayi. For centuries, Western historians dismissed this simply as a standard book of ancient grammar. But when modern computational linguists finally examined it in the late 20th century, they realized they were not looking at a normal grammar book. They were looking at a massive, hyper-advanced, flawless piece of algorithmic software. Panini did not just write down the rules of how people spoke. He essentially reverse-engineered the entire human language into a strict mathematical framework. The Ashtadhyayi consists of exactly 3,959 highly condensed rules, functioning exactly like lines of code in modern programming languages like Python or C++. I have noticed that when we talk about ancient sages, people mistakenly imagine them simply sitting in caves writing poetry. Panini was not writing poetry. He was operating exactly like a master software engineer. He used sophisticated meta-rules, recursive algorithms, and Boolean logic to create a system where you can input a raw root word and a suffix, run it through his specific sequence of formulas, and output a perfectly constructed, zero-ambiguity sentence every single time. It is a flawless generative machine. In computer science, this is known as a formal language system. The incredible thing is that Maharishi Panini invented this formal language system over 2 millennia before the invention of the first electronic computer. He built a machine entirely out of human thought. But the absolute, mind-bending confirmation of this ancient genius did not reach the modern tech world until the spring of 1985. A highly respected researcher named Rick Briggs published a groundbreaking peer-reviewed paper in AI magazine, a premier journal heavily read by researchers at NASA and elite artificial intelligence laboratories globally. The paper was titled Knowledge Representation in Sanskrit and Artificial Intelligence. What Briggs discovered completely shattered the arrogance of modern computer science. He mathematically proved that the exact solutions modern engineers were desperately trying to invent to solve the AI language problem had already been perfectly mapped out by ancient Hindu grammarians thousands of years ago. Briggs demonstrated that Sanskrit, specifically as codified by Panini, naturally functions as a perfect semantic net. It is the only natural language on Earth that can be translated directly into machine-readable, algorithmic logic, without losing a single drop of its meaning, and without introducing any mathematical ambiguity whatsoever. Let me explain exactly how this ancient linguistic technology works, because it fundamentally proves that the creators of Sanskrit possessed an advanced understanding of cognitive physics. Unlike English, where meaning is dictated by the rigid sequence of words, Sanskrit is a highly inflected language. It uses a brilliant modular system called karakas. Karakas are essentially strict mathematical tags attached to the end of nouns and verbs. These tags permanently lock in the exact relationship between the words, regardless of where they are placed in the physical sentence. Imagine you have a subject, an object, an instrument, and an action. In Sanskrit, you attach a specific suffix to the instrument that permanently labels it as the instrument. Because every single word carries its own undeniable algorithmic tag, you can take a Sanskrit sentence, completely scramble the order of the words into any random configuration, and the meaning remains mathematically absolute. The machine never has to guess the context. There is absolutely no ambiguity. The data is securely locked. When Rick Briggs and other elite AI researchers realized this, they were stunned. They had been spending billions of dollars trying to create artificial, robotic languages that could communicate pure logic to computers, only to find that the ancient sages of Sanatana Dharma had already spoken it. Sanskrit is not just a language of spiritual devotion. It is a language of absolute scientific precision. It is an algorithmic framework deliberately designed to convey massive amounts of complex, multi-layered data without degradation over thousands of years. The sages knew that human memory is fragile, and that spoken languages organically evolve, corrupt, and break down over time. To preserve the supreme scientific and spiritual knowledge of the Vedas, they needed a medium that was totally immune to corruption. They needed a language that was mathematically indestructible. So they engineered classical Sanskrit using Panini's algorithmic architecture. When you truly comprehend the depth of this reality, it completely redefines how we must view ancient Indian history. We are not looking at a primitive society that accidentally stumbled upon a complex language. We are looking at a highly advanced, fiercely intellectual civilization that mastered the exact mechanics of information theory, logic, and cognitive representation millennia before the Western world even grasped the basic concepts. The fact that modern tech billionaires and software engineers are just now catching up to the linguistic algorithms of Maharishi Panini proves that the foundation of future technology is buried deep within our ancient past. The architecture of the human mind, the structure of the physical universe, and the fundamental code of artificial intelligence are all perfectly aligned within the phonetic and syntactic rules of Sanskrit. It is quite literally the source code of reality. I have to pause here because the implications for the modern world are massive. Think about the astronomical amount of capital currently being poured into artificial intelligence right now. Companies are desperately trying to build machines that can reason, perfectly understand, and interact flawlessly with human beings. Yet they are building these godlike machines on the unstable, chaotic foundation of modern English and unpredictable coding syntax. They are completely ignoring the perfect, mathematically proven architecture that already exists. If the tech industry truly wants to achieve artificial general intelligence, they will inevitably have to abandon their current linguistic models and adopt the exact algorithmic structure that the ancient Hindu grammarians perfected. The future of global technology will not be written in English. It will inevitably be written in the structural logic of Sanskrit. This is not a matter of subjective cultural pride. It is a matter of hard, undeniable computer science. The paper published in 1985 by Rick Briggs is publicly available for anyone to read. The mathematical perfection of the Ashtadhyayi is an established linguistic fact recognized by scholars worldwide. Yet, the mainstream education system completely ignores this profound reality. We are repeatedly taught to look at ancient India strictly through the lens of mysticism, philosophy, and mythology, while the absolute, undeniable scientific brilliance of our ancestors is conveniently swept under the rug. We are trained to constantly look to Silicon Valley for the future, without realizing that Silicon Valley is still trying to solve a complex puzzle that was already completed on the banks of the Indus River thousands of years ago. This profound realization should completely destroy the inferiority complex that has been forced upon us by modern historical narratives. When you hear a Sanskrit mantra being chanted, you are not just hearing a religious sound. You are literally listening to a perfectly structured, mathematically flawless line of code being executed. It was engineered by the greatest intellectual architects in human history. You are hearing the language of the universe, the exact same algorithmic logic that the most advanced computers require to understand pure data. The extreme precision of the syllables, the exactness of the grammar, and the zero ambiguity structure were not designed for casual everyday conversation. They were heavily engineered for absolute, unwavering truth and data preservation. If we do not educate ourselves and our children about the hard science embedded within Sanatana Dharma, we will lose ownership of our own intellectual heritage. The West will eventually adopt the structural logic of Sanskrit to build their trillion-dollar AI empires, and they will package it as their own modern discovery. We must be the ones to loudly and proudly reclaim this narrative right now. We must present the ancient texts not just as beautiful religious scriptures, but as the supreme scientific and technological manuals that they truly are. We must show the world that the ultimate programming language, the absolute peak of natural language processing, is the sacred language of the Vedas. The historical evidence is clear. The computer science is heavily documented. And the ultimate proof is locked within the timeless algorithms of Maharishi Panini. It is time we stop viewing our history as a simple collection of myths and start realizing it is the exact blueprint for the future of human civilization. We are standing on the shoulders of intellectual giants who successfully mapped out the cognitive framework of reality itself. If this deep, uncompromising dive into the undisputed science of Sanskrit and artificial intelligence has completely shifted your perspective on our ancient texts and modern technology, you must help me spread this profound knowledge. The modern algorithm is designed to keep humanity distracted with meaningless entertainment, but we must aggressively force it to push this authentic, highly intellectual, and historically accurate science out to the entire world. Hit the like button right now to trigger the system and tell the platform that this is the knowledge the world desperately needs to see. I want you to go down into the comments right now and tell me exactly how you view the Sanskrit language after hearing the absolute truth about its algorithmic perfection. Are you going to start looking at the ancient sages not just as spiritual masters, but as the original software engineers of human history? Does knowing the direct connection between NASA's research and Maharishi Panini's grammar make you want to learn more about the true hard science hidden within Sanatana Dharma? Let me know your exact thoughts, because I read every single comment and I want to see who is truly waking up to this reality. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have the notification bell turned on so you never miss these deep, uncompromising dives into the unedited truth of our history. The algorithms of the modern world are slowly catching up to the genius of our ancestors. Stay disciplined, stay highly educated, never stop seeking the absolute truth, and I will see you in the next one.